All right, guys, get ready. It's setting up. I'll tell you when we're live. All right. Smile, everybody. We're live. Setting up. This is where I need a All right. All right, we are live. I am going to share the link. Hello, everyone, as you start to come in. Lisa and Jessica, can you still hear me? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to share this to Think About It Thursdays. Live now with Cantors. I actually am tagging you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so first of all, my personal page. I'll post it to Emmanuel in a second, but there, it's on my personal. Okay. Let's see if I should technically get an email from YouTube. Yep, I did. It works. All right, now I can watch it there. Let's see if people are logging on. Hey. Let's see. Hey, Jay is on, so people can find us.
Excellent.
Jay is Sarah's congregant. He is on. It takes people a good 5 to 10 minutes to find us, as you guys probably very well know. Good afternoon, Jay. We're going to kind of wait for people. Did you guys see it to share?
Yeah, I'm sharing right now.
All right. Welcome to our early viewers. We're really excited for this special time this week. We all have our backgrounds. As Jessica told me, I'm very studious. But really, I just typed in chic Zoom backgrounds, and this is what came up. Nice. Chic. This was harder to you couldn't screenshot this one, though. It was interesting. I worked with Jessica when she taught at Temple Israel. If you pull up the YouTube on your phone, you can watch people as they come in. Okay, let's give it a second because I forgot to share it on the Emmanuel page. Live now for Think About It. All right. We should be live everywhere now. All right. And I see Raymond Zachary. Of course, Raymond Zachary is there. We all know Raymond.
He was just on my weekly show.
Oh, Raymond, do you just watch all of the Zooms all the time? It's his job. He could be our technical person.
He put on my shoes doing Rachel's nails during the quarantine. I'm like, what? I want a personal.
He was doing what?
Rachel's
He was
nails.
doing someone's What?
Rachel.
He's saying hi. You do nails, Raymond? Why am I not surprised? Who else? People are signing on. Slowly signing on. Slowly. This isn't also an experiment because normally we're at 10 a.m. This week we're at 1, so it might be during people's lunch. Yeah. But it's okay because we're going to talk and we are going to record this. Actually, should I record it on here? It couldn't hurt, huh? Record.
Not obvious that we're live. Go through the jewidathome.com link.
It's not obvious that we're live?
No.
What's the link from Jewett at Home take you to?
Emmanuel Beverly Hills, but it doesn't say to click for live anywhere.
Okay.
Oh, well, now it does. It took a second. It took a second.
Okay, now you have to what's the word?
Oh,
you have to mute the other one so that we don't hear that.
I know. I don't know why I did that. That's crazy. Okay.
All right. So we're going to give it 2 more minutes. Do you want to show us your babies? All your babies. Why are your babies sleeping? Your baby's not there.
My baby's at grandma's house.
In his crib.
Nice.
He's just laying there like calmly.
Yeah.
And not sleeping?
He was asleep and he just woke up and he just kind of lays there and hangs out. Sometimes he'll fall back asleep but usually he's just kind of talking to himself or singing. I realized that he actually wakes up at 5 every morning, but that he lets me sleep until 6, which is, I can watch it back on the monitor that he's just like hanging out.
That's what you want. That's what you want to happen.
As
Well,
long as
so
I
far
wake
it's
up
taking people a
before
little
6.
bit longer this week to figure this out. But why don't we start? Actually, I said I would give it one more minute. Let's see. How many Zoom meetings have you been on already today, Jessica?
This is the third, I think.
Yeah, Lisa.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 and a very long phone call.
4 in a row. Okay, I did like recording.
I zoomed into preschool this morning. So I do like 10 minutes of music with our different preschool classes. So it's like the first time
Raymond
I can actually be in 2 locations at once.
Oh, people are really starting to come on out. By the way, Raymond says he's been on 6. I don't know what have you been doing, Raymond? You'll have to fill us in. Everybody who's there, I want to introduce to my left. Wait, that
look at each other?
nope, that way. Yeah, look at me. I know we're not looking there. You have to look the other way.
You're right.
It's very weird. Okay, this next to me is Cantor Lisa Peacott from Wilshire Boulevard Temple, and below us is Cantor Jessica Hutchings from Congregation.
It appears differently. That's so funny. On Zoom, it appears that I'm on your right and Lisa's below us.
Oh, you're right. That's so weird. You're right.
Yeah.
Lisa's below us on
Appearing all
YouTube.
around you.
All around.
Appearing all around us, yes. They are both at the beach. I am a little more responsible. So I am I am in my beautifully colorful, amazing, chic bookshelf room. Wow, a lot of people have had a lot of Zooms today. So Jessica and Lisa are 2 of my closest friends, and I'm very blessed that I found them really only because we all made that decision to become cantors, or we might not have ever known each other. And I don't go really any day without talking to probably both of you. And sometimes they're wonderful conversations, and sometimes they're like just people complaining. And sometimes in the case of both of these new moms, it's like just to go look at their babies. And Joey and Emmett are the cutest little boys ever. And but besides all of that, I think that the purpose of today was to talk about this kind of people know that the Cantorate is now mostly female. I've heard even kids say, can men even be cantors? And that's so interesting. So before we give our backgrounds, let's see. Lisa, did you grow up with male or female clergy?
I grew up with mostly male clergy. We had one female rabbi that was with us for, I think, a couple of years, and then she left our community, but mostly male.
Mostly male. Okay, Jessica?
So I had the male clergy that I still work with today. So I went back to my home synagogue. And I had a female cantorial soloist. I did not have a cantor. And so it was mixed. But as is the children in our community today, they think that rabbis have to be men and cantors have to be women because that's what they see on the bima. So
that cantors have to be women and rabbis have to be men. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I grew up similar to Jessica with, now I work with the clergy that I grew up with, but I did have our senior rabbi, Rabbi Laura Geller, who was the first female senior rabbi in the country. So I feel like I actually had a really good balance of I don't think I ever remember thinking, oh, cantors or rabbis can only be male or female. My brother is a rabbi. My uncle was a rabbi. May he rest in peace. So I definitely grew up in a very inclusive environment. Welcome, everybody who keep signing on. I knew it takes people 10 minutes to start this whole thing. But all right, so before we dig deep into Think About It Thursdays, Jessica, do you want to give give us like where did you grow up and kind of your journey to becoming a cantor?
Sure.
And I think, by the way, I have like theories about like how people end up becoming cantors. So definitely give us like your inspiration or like who influenced you.
Okay. So, let's see. I always loved to sing. There's pictures of me with my little, it was called My First Sony. It was like a little red, blue, and yellow, like boombox that had a tape player and a microphone. And there's many pictures of me with my dad's sunglasses walking around the house singing. So I always loved to sing. And I took singing lessons at an early age, and I fell in love with it. And then I think the Jewish connection for me was the studies when I became bat mitzvah, where I really connected to the prayers and realized that there was a lot of return on when I would sing, people would comment on it. And so there were like stepstones up to this point. So when I was 5 years old, I go back to my consecration where Debbie Friedman was the special guest. And it was at her home synagogue. Before I moved to Las Vegas, we lived in Southern California in Orange County at Temple Beth Shalom, which was her home synagogue. And she came for consecration that year. And I sang the Aleph Bets with her. And she leaned down to me and said, "Little girl, you have a very nice voice," at 5 years old. So
I've never heard this story.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then I told it to her at my HUC audition. I'm like, I don't know if you remember doing this, but this happened. And she happened to be at the audition. And she's like, "I don't remember." I was like, "Well, you just bursted my bubble. May your memory be a blessing." So,
she told you I don't remember.
I don't remember. Cantor, this is a big deal. So,
right.
So that was, the first stepping stone. Then it was preparing for my bat mitzvah. And then I decided, well, I want, like every little girl likes to sing, I wanted to be Britney Spears. And then it kind of evolved into, I loved classical music, and I decided to study in college opera. So I studied opera, and I started teaching at Temple Israel in Long Beach as a Hebrew teacher. And then I was kind of working in all these different synagogues in that area, and Congregation B'nai Tzedek in Fountain Valley has, he's still emeritus, an amazing rabbi, Stephen Einstein, who I met along the way. He asked me to fill in for his daughter, Rabbi Rebecca Shore, when she was going on maternity leave, as like for the 3 months of the summer, to be a cantorial soloist. And I just took her music books and learned under his wing. And I came back to college in my junior year and said to my opera coach, "I think I'm going to become a cantor." And that kind of started this journey to which school to go to and where to end up. And that was those were the big major stepping points that kind of led me here. So.
Yeah. All right. Lisa, your background.
My background. I'm at the beach. I just need something to drink a cocktail.
Not that background.
So, I know. So I grew up in Los Angeles. I'm a Valley girl, born and raised at Temple Aliyah. And I was always, like Jessica, just someone, my mom says I came out of the womb singing, that as a little girl, as a baby, I would just kind of stare at the chandeliers and sing to myself. So from a very early age of attending services with my grandparents and my parents on Friday nights, was always involved in the music of the synagogue. I was always in the cantors like Mishorim, where we go around to old folks' homes and sing songs for the holidays. So I had that Jewish musical side, where I think that like my first exposure to music really was sitting, in the pews and trying to harmonize and to sing for holidays. But I started taking voice lessons, and I loved musical theater, and I ended up really falling in love with the art form of opera. I went to a performing arts high school, LA County High School for the Arts, where I just fully dove into the world of opera. I ended up studying opera at UCLA. I did my undergrad and my master's, and each year that I would complete a degree, I would have this moment of like, I don't feel satisfied. Like this is what I want to do because I love music. And I think what I love most about performance and music is the ability to change people and the ability to cause an emotional effect in people, which when I really stopped to think about it, is the same thing that the Cantorate is, that we enable people through music to open up their hearts in a way that they wouldn't have to prayer and to process their own emotions. So I did the opera thing. I would always kind of end a degree and say, I don't really want to be an opera singer. And this idea of the Cantorate had always kind of floated in the back of my head, being that singer girl at Temple with my chazan, Mike Stein. There was always that, oh, you're going to be a cantor. Like, just you wait, you're going to be a cantor. And the minute someone tells you that you're going to do something, you're like, oh, no, I'm going to do my own thing. But I eventually came around to it. I was asked, this was after finishing my master's, to sing a piece that my cantor had composed for the Helfman Composers Concert here in Los Angeles that was held, interestingly enough, at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And it was my first time kind of interacting with cantors and clergy other than who I had grown up with. And I had gone to the restroom after service, after the concert, and someone came up to me and they said, I'm a rabbinic student from Boston. I never could remember her name. I never found the card. She said, you have a neshama that just like shines through. She was like, the Jewish people need you. Like, you need to become a cantor. And the very next day, I called AJR and I like demanded to like speak to someone and like have an interview. And that was kind of like my divine moment of like intervention that like got the whole thing started. I remember coming home to my fiance at the time, now husband, and I was like, hey, you know how I've like kind of been an opera singer and like working part-time jobs? I'm going to be a cantor. And he was like, what? Okay.
Wait, so you've never figured out who that person was since then? Are you out there?
I remember they gave me a card. If you're out there, please write to me. But that moment of like having someone else recognize that, and it just felt like a very powerful moment in my life. And literally, you can like ask the administration at AJR. Like, I called not knowing that you don't call Jewish organizations at 3:00 on a Friday, and was like, I need to talk to someone because I'm ready to do this now. And that took me off on this like incredible journey to where like every moment of my job is just a pleasure, and I feel so grateful because not everyone gets to find the path that they were meant to be on, but I just have so much gratitude that I was able to find what I think that I was truly meant to do in life.
It's interesting that like your story is so similar to mine in so many ways, and I had this moment when I came back from that summer where I was with Rabbi Einstein on the Bima, and I told my opera coach that, and he's like, sing something for me that you worked on this summer. So I was like, okay. So I don't know what prayer it was at the time. Like, I think it was Meditation by Portnoy or something. And he was like, I've been trying to get you to sing in Italian and French and German this way for years. And now, like you were saying about your neshama shining through, like, this was what I was meant to be singing. I was meant to be singing in Hebrew. I was meant to be communicating with the congregation and to be their Klei Kodesh. And it took all these kind of moments to get there.
Yeah. Which none of those were like for a waste. Like, everything that we'd all gone through, all the training that we all gone through is like completely, priceless in the job that we chose to take on. But it's absolutely where it's just like, we just needed the right words to put to it. Yeah. And it wasn't Italian and French, and it wasn't pretending to be a character. It was to actually be myself and to sing prayers that represented other people and connection and community. That was the difference.
Yeah, I think that the biggest impact on, when someone says, well, why did you become a cantor? I would say for the majority of us, we were exposed to the music and the practices when we were kids. Like, this was a part of our very being, even if many of us fought it and said, well, I might sing at Temple now, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be a cantor, right? I know for me, before I ended up going, before I ended up doing musical theater and stuff, everyone used to tell me, you're going to be a cantor, you're going to be a cantor, you're going to be a cantor. And I was like, no, I'm not. Right. So I actually do have a question. So here's a first think about it, a fact. In the Torah, and we'll give people a few seconds because you guys will know the answer. How old are you supposed to be before you start kind of the studies of, that time, the priesthood, or before you could be counted as a religious leader, before you could make the decision that you wanted to become clergy? Let's ask the people on here, how old do you think you could be thousands of years ago? And this has been defined in Talmud. I think at least, let's see, it's 2000. So at least over 1,000 years ago.
Okay.
Where you a priest, not a cantor. Not a Cantor,
I was
no.
going to get a text for the Chazan because there is a giveaway on the list of things.
Okay, you'll do that next level. So first of all, feel free to post your answers, but I want to ask Lisa. We're not going to give away our ages, even though whatever. Lord knows it's not B'nai Mitzvah age, says Raymond. Jay says, wow, it's a tough one. Let's try 18. Lisa, how old were you when you started Cantorial school?
27 or 28. I can't remember.
Okay,
I
Jessica?
came to it late.
My goal was to be done by 30. So I think, well, I have a kind of a bumpy, like I started.
Yeah,
then I went
we'll
to
talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. So I was 23.
Okay, but you were really kind of closer. Okay, and I was 25. So the answer is 25. So that at least that you could be recognized as a leader. I mean, I'm bending the rules a little bit, but the point was, you know, when there are a lot of students today who are going into Cantorial school straight out of college. And I think even though our lives look really different than they did in biblical times, you could say, there was something about that 18 to 25 life, like that, those years where you move away from being a child, you experience life, you experience the things that you think you want to do. For me, Broadway. For you guys, it was classical singing. And then at 25, you're now at a point where you can commit your life and for me, like, not look back. So I just wanted to share that as a Think About It Thursday fact, that you're really supposed to be 25 before you start before you start your training. Now, Jessica, what were you going to say?
There's life experience to that. I mean, it's not a whole lot of life experience, but there's the opportunity to have a job, to know what a deadline is, to be able to communicate properly with people.
Right.
All things that really are the job. Aside
Absolutely.
From
Yeah, and it is interesting because although I started at 23, I ended up taking a break to get a master's in education and then coming back to it at like 25 and a half or 26.
Right. So that counted. And actually part of your journey was discovering, like, oh, you know, we don't have to share all the reasons, but like, I'm going to go get my master's in education and then I'm going to come back. And that was part of your journey, starting at closer to 25, 26 years old.
Yeah. And because I auditioned at HUC as well, because I thought in my dream world I was moving to New York, and that's like, you know, whatever, but it was so much better to stay in California. And they basically said that there was like a shift in the leadership at HUC at that time that did not want such young people enrolled in the school. And so they said, we want you, but we want you next year. So I was like, I'm ready now. And so I auditioned the next day for AJR, which was already scheduled. And I ended up starting and realizing I should have maybe done something else for a year. So
yeah, and I do have to say, so all three of us went to the Academy for Jewish Religion. All three of us are also tested, verified, stamp of approval, American Conference of Cantors, which is the Reform Association. We all support it. We all love it and are I think big participants in it, and are very grateful to the URJ and the ACC for allowing us. You know, we were my group, or the year before me was the first group, Jessica's group, that could even test in, and it was a pretty rigorous process. But yeah, lots of testing. If you go to Hebrew Union College, you don't have to test to get in. But so Jessica, what were you going to say about when you could become a cantor? You had a fact.
I believe there's like I can't quote the exact part of the Talmud, but there's a Talmudic passage that talks about what makes a good cantor, and in it, you know, I think all of us hit all the touchstones until we get to a big beard, and yes. Yeah, I'm not growing one, so
the bushier the beard, the better. The more wisdom.
Yeah, right.
The bearded lady would be great.
Right. So, you know, it's interesting because it kind of said two things. It said you had to be older and have some wisdom, and it said that you had to be a man in just that comment.
Yeah. So what I think is really interesting is that I think it's either 8 or 9 out of 10 cantors that are being ordained today see themselves as females. And I wanted to get your guys' sense of, why is that happening? Some of it for the negative. Why are there more musical men who could become cantors who are becoming rabbis? Because it's not that there's fewer men becoming clergy as a whole, I think. It's more that, in my experience, 9 out of 10 cantors are female coming out of school. And I could probably literally, I won't do it out loud, name 4 men our age right now who could have become cantors, but became rabbis. So I wanted to kind of, who are talented enough to have become cantors, vocally and musical skill wise, but they became rabbis. So talk about thought provoking. This has been a really difficult thing. I mean, all 3 of us with I think one thing that we have in common is our work ethic. And just because we have that work ethic, often we've all been told, well, you should just be a rabbi too. Or you should go get your double ordination. And I think we all really much agree that that's not what we want to do. We want to prove ourselves as what we provide as cantors, not as rabbis. So I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you guys think about the reason why there are more female cantors today? And then Lisa, maybe Jessica, you go first, and then Lisa, you can talk a little bit about your thesis to help us with this.
I mean, I get worked up about this whole subject because I started to notice it my first year in Cantorial school that there was just a lack of respect in general for the Cantorate. It almost felt like, I was just thinking of it in this moment, like nurses and doctors. Like, yes, doctors do go to school more than nurses or differently than nurses. So it's not a good comparison because rabbis and cantors go to school the same amount of time. But it's that same idea that more nurses are female and more doctors are male, and doctors are the ones that we should go to for the ultimate advice. But if you think about where you gave birth, the nurse did all the work. So it's kind of similar in those situations. And the rabbi gets a lot of credit, where you kind of have to sit back and be like, it's okay, I love them, they're my colleague, it's fine. And then also I have so much to say about it. Like, even yesterday, the CCAR put out this article about how COVID is changing the rabbinate, and all these cantors got really upset because they're like, the Cantorate's changing too. So now I'm helping to write an article as a response for the cantors, because our jobs are changing too, but our jobs are so similar. And I know that also, I'm kind of going all over the place, but I'll hopefully get to the answer. We also have colleagues in the LA area who would like to see that we don't even have the term cantor used anymore. We just have the term rabbi for all of us, and we are just musical rabbis. Not just, but we are tasked with being a musical rabbi, so that we gain the respect of the community that is so hard to latch onto. No matter what I do, I've been here almost 6 years, and I'm one of the only, there's very few cantors in the city. And I'm the only one.
As a reminder, she's right near Las Vegas.
Not the beach.
I'm the only one I know of that is full time. And I've been trying to get on the board of rabbis because it's really difficult to start a cantorial board if they're the cantors. And they decline, reject, will not have a board of rabbis and cantors. And they have their reasons. But it really diminishes us in what we can do. And, they decided to do a whole Shavuot, to plan a whole Shavuot thing in the Board of Rabbis, which is awesome. I'm having a community Shavuot, but have the cantors in the conversation. So we are supposed to be partners, and I am very lucky that I have a partner in that. And why do I think that female cantors, or there's more female cantors than male cantors? I actually don't know the answer to that part of the question.
I do. Know. I mean, I think that some of it comes down to ego. This is going to be kind of controversial, but I think that there's a lot of men and women, by the way. I do think there are women too who decide, yeah, I might sing and that might be my passion and talent, but I never want to be told you're just the cantor, you're not the rabbi. And I want to always have that upper, I want to always have I want to have everyone's highest opinion. And no matter what you do, the rabbi is always going to have be more esteemed than the cantor. So I think that does change people's decision of whether they want to become a rabbi or whether they want to become a cantor. In my case, like, could I have gone back to school and for a couple of years and become a rabbi? Sure. Would I want to be a rabbi cantor? No. I'm passionate about being artistic, about the aesthetics of prayer, about the heart of prayer. And if I was having to do some of the jobs of rabbis, often there are, the fact is every rabbi has different niches, right? Like some are more studious and some are more into social action, and we should all have that variety. But I do believe there's a certain element of because the Cantorate has sometimes been looked down upon, or in the hierarchy it goes rabbi cantor, there are people who say, well, then I'm not going to become a cantor, I'm just going to become a rabbi. And I have tried to convince some of these male colleagues, like, no, be a cantor and let's change people's minds and show them that we can be senior cantors. I mean, kol hakavod to Lee Korn up in Temple Isaiah of Lafayette, who is senior cantor with a senior rabbi. They are a team. I know all of us in many ways work with a team, but Lisa, it's interesting that you're on because your thesis was sort of about the evolution of the cantorate and comparing it to other positions that used to be more male, and now are more female. So maybe you can talk about the intersection and maybe like some more of the facts around what Jessica and I think.
Yeah.
While she's doing that, can we throw a poll out there?
Oh, yeah.
A poll. Okay.
I want to know, because of this colleague who I highly respect, and I think it's an interesting idea, what do you think about the idea of rolling the cantorate into the idea of a musical rabbi? Therefore, that way we get a rabbi title, and therefore people respect us. I want to know what the public thinks.
Which, by the way, there are some,
what if
or just clergy, yeah.
Just clergy.
There are some rabbis, funny enough, being hired as rabbi of musical outreach or something.
Oh, yeah.
They have titles like that right now. Okay, so let's, Lisa, give us.
But to anyone that's posting jobs for like that, just hire a cantor, please. Like, come on. Anyway, continue, Lisa.
Okay. So my thesis for Cantorial School was to look at the impact of women in the Cantorate and to kind of look at other careers. The careers I looked at was teaching, which was primarily a male profession for much of our history and then became a female profession, as well as looking at secretaries, which was also a male kind of the grand vizier sidekick of some rich noble, which then became what we think of as pink collar careers is what academics refer to it. And so I looked at the Cantor. I think a lot of what you guys are saying in terms of esteem, I think a lot of it is the idea of prestige. So perhaps some of our male colleagues who are musically inclined, that subconsciously there might be some impression that there's more prestige in becoming a rabbi versus a cantor, which has become a predominantly female-dominated career. Seminaries are graduating more women than they are men. I think at this point within at least the ACC, we're, if not a little bit more than 50% of the members. We have certainly surpassed the men. If you look at leadership within the movements, it's a lot of women. The conservative movement was a little bit slower in when they would ordain women and when they accepted women into the Cantors Assembly, which was in like the early 90s, which is mind-boggling to me because that means I was born into a world in which a female cantor wasn't accepted into the conservative movement. But so I think a lot of it is prestige, and the same kind of warnings that came with looking at secretaries and looking at the profession of teachers, that all of a sudden you see a change in job responsibility. You see a change in pay. A lot of the unions have been looking back at what the pay discrepancy has been between male and female, and they've done everything they can to make it equal. But just like we see with a lot of other jobs in the United States, it's not equal, and women still have a long way to come back from that. So in terms of like job responsibilities, the Cantor educator, so much more teaching. We were talking about earlier before we came on that the seminaries had always allowed women to teach. They'd always allowed them to be Jewish educators, and it was that the Cantorate and getting ordained as a cantor is what was allowed to be only male. And then once women were allowed to be ordained, you see a huge shift in what the job responsibility was for a cantor. A cantor that used to walk in on a Friday night or a Shabbat morning and all they had to do was daven and sing their chazanut, that is not the career of the cantorate right now. The career of the cantorate, yes, we sing services. The amount of time that we actually have to craft that is so small compared to our administrative duties, our teaching duties, our chaplaincy. So I think that you see a totally different job, which can be seen as having less prestige.
Absolutely. I'm reading Jay and Raymond's really thoughtful comments. Cantors should be separate and treated with the same respect as rabbis. Cantors need and deserve more respect than a rabbi because the amount of training that goes unseen. I have a comment about that in a second. Anyone with a bachelor's can become a rabbi, but the years of musical training that is required to become a cantor takes so much more before you even apply to Cantorial school. And then I agree with Raymond at Temple Israel. Cantor my sister, has changed the idea of what a cantor does, and also many cantors train the B'nai Mitzvahs. So listen, there is one thing that you can't deny about being a cantor, which is I believe ability to sing is a God-given gift, right? It's more, I always get these messed up. Objective, like what is something that like everybody agrees with? That's objective, right? Subjective, I get them messed up every time. Like most people listen to someone and go, oh, they were given the gift of a voice, right? With rabbis, I also believe that there's God-given gifts. Absolutely. They're a little bit more depends on who the person is. Like, I really like that rabbi. I don't like that rabbi. So Raymond, while there is absolutely an amount of training that comes along with becoming a cantor, there's also just this aspect of like you can't, or at least you shouldn't become a cantor unless you are so connected with this divine musical gift that you're given that you can move people to a different level. I mean, all of us had to read Abraham Joshua Heschel's The Vocation of a Cantor and write an essay on it in order to get in Cantorial school. And a lot of it does talk about how we are the humble leaders and that our job is to elevate people in prayer beyond the prose that a rabbi would be able to write. I do think, yeah, I just, there is that unspoken thing that's not just about our training, because I don't want to say that there aren't rabbis who have tremendous amount of training, or they went to school for X and then they got a master's in poli-sci and then they became rabbis. So like, I don't think it's a matter of training. I just would like, I would like every Jewish child in America to be able to experience a cantor with training. And for cantors in their 20s before they make a decision to go to school, to not feel like, oh, I'm just going to become a rabbi because cantors don't get respect. I think all three of us are really, really trying hard to earn everyone's respect. And we don't say like, we're just not going to work as hard. Like nobody, we have all three of us, because I've heard the stories, been in a place where somebody has called and said, I want a male rabbi for my wedding. I want a male rabbi. Oh, right. Sorry. A rabbi. Right. Male rabbi, then cantor. Probably male cantor, then female cantor. So
right now. I'm doing this right now with a couple that wants to they just moved to town and they want to just have a wedding, just the two of them. And our rabbi just couldn't do it, and I called them, said I'm happy to officiate this for you. Let's talk soon. And they left a message for me like a couple days later that they were so disappointed that the rabbi wasn't available, as if I was like his assistant, that I could like relay that information to him. And they still want me to do it, but they're hesitant because a rabbi in LA recommended our rabbi and they think they need a rabbi. It's like, you don't need a rabbi. I can do
Right.
it.
I know, but I do think that there are two ways to approach the situation. One is to be really negative and just like angry, and the other is to just each of us do our job in the best way we can, so that in 20 years, people who are in our positions don't face this. And
Yeah, you
more,
change people's mind by the actions that you do. And so when you're with a B'nai Mitzvah student and, you know, in your lessons, you're slowly helping them craft their Devar Torah to the point where they're like, oh, like you can do this too. Or, you know, I'm really fortunate to work with rabbis who are like, you know, Cantor Peacock, like, what do you want to talk about in the service tonight? Like, I think you should give a Devar. And you're like, oh, I can think as well. I can write. Like, I took the same Talmud classes as you. And the ones that are musical rabbis, I'm happy to also share those responsibilities. Like, I'm all for the title of clergy and that we are just one well-rounded group of people. I think I'm one of those
yeah, I think the most
revolutionaries.
demeaning is that like cantors aren't as smart. That is not. I think that at least those of us who have a proven track record or serve established congregations, not just established, but could be innovative new congregations, you know, we've proven that it takes a lot to put together, you know, services that move people and arcs of emotion. And that is an intellect, that's an emotional intellect that we have that is very different than some of the best rabbis that I work with, who don't see things kind of from a bird's eye view. They might see their sermon. But okay, so Lisa, can you go a little bit further into your comparison of nurses and teachers, and like in what ways do you think the Cantorate has changed being more feminine, female now?
Well, what I mentioned before is that 100% in terms of the job description. I mean, very clear in like the Talmud and even like the golden age of cantors, it was about your voice, it was about your presence, and they would, you know, you'd walk into your audition and they would pick a page on, you know, in the Siddur for you to daven or the Machzor for high holidays, and if you could sing the you know what out of it, you were hired. And that was all you had to worry about. And that's why so many cantors, they had other careers. They could have a side career because they weren't fully at the temple all the time. It was like B'nai Mitzvah tutoring, maybe, and that they would daven. And my thesis and what I kind of took from it of looking at these careers is with each of these teaching, secretary, the minute women enter the workforce, you see a decrease in salary, but you also see an increase in abilities. And what I also went into my thesis a little bit more is there's also a basic like neurological, they've done studies that women are better multitaskers. Our brains think like that. We have to divide ourselves into so many different personalities, wife, mother, daughter. And so administratively, our brains can just handle a lot more. Not to say that there are men that can't do it just as well. But with women coming into the force, you have the teaching responsibility, you have administrative responsibility, and the job just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to where it's not just about doing services. It's about, you know, I talk about with some of my families like chazan, like chazon, the vision, having that vision for like what the temple looks like and how it is that you're going to accomplish that, whether it be through services, through programs, through education. And so once you had women kind of enter the fold, you see the job responsibilities explode for all of those careers. And you see the same thing for the Cantorate, especially when it comes to education, because women were always allowed to teach.
I also wonder if there's a certain element. I mean, yes, we're talking about the female side of things. Is there an element of I mean, all of us are on the older edge of millennial, but is there a certain aspect? A lot of people say that millennials are lazy or millennials are entitled. And like in my experience, my friends that are the most successful millennials are none of those things. We work our asses off. Oops, I didn't say that. We work our butts off harder than anyone that I've ever met. So there's this, it's weird that there are definitely those side of the millennials who have this sense of entitlement, and then there are the side of us who are really innovative and work really, really hard. But I wonder if sometimes when people are like comparing it, if they're not if they're talking more about being a millennial in general and less about being a female.
Right.
like how much is there crossover in the like stigma of being a female, because so many more cantors are female today, and
I mean, I
we
think
all
there's an entrepreneurial element. If you look at like, the way that millennials want to structure their work week, you have places like Facebook and you have, TikTok videos. Like we want to be in control of the situation. We want to work a certain amount of time. We want to still value our families. I think everyone is kind of learning what millennials were talking about during this time of COVID-19, because people are being able to structure their work life the way they want to and have that work-life balance and not have to struggle and work as much as their parents did. And I think a lot of that also plays into the Cantorate and coming up with new ideas. I mean, how much are millennials saving a lot of their temples right now with knowing how to use Zoom and Facebook and Instagram and InstaChat,
Yeah, and actually that has been some of the biggest pressure. And I mean, I'm working on a project with the ACC right now, and it's like, hold on, I have to close my door. Jessica, you were going to say something.
So it's interesting that you said that, because it you and I had this conversation. We had babies just a couple weeks apart, and we were these moms on maternity, cantors on maternity leave, and coming back in after maternity leave, I thought I was going to face a situation where like, whatever you need, you want to work from home a little bit, you want to do, and it was the opposite. It was, we want you to work more. We've missed you, come back, whatever. And it's very structured vision. And then obviously this all happened a month later and that was all out the door. But I think that both of us have proven that we can work from home very successfully. In fact, we can take on new job responsibilities at the drop of a hat. And, now I feel like I'm the IT department, the social media department, the marketing department, the program director, and the cantor. So, and I'm not complaining about it. And a mom, and I'm not complaining about it.
Most important job of all.
Right. And I find it enjoyable to do these things. I'm not complaining. But the reality is, as a woman, like you were saying, I think we have this capacity to set our minds to something and achieve it. And as a cantor who has this creative mind, we get creative with how we utilize our time and how we're able to reach our community. And as millennials, I'm like, we're barely millennials, but as millennials, that we can inspire the generation that came before us that this is possible. Like, don't think in this box, think out. There's a world outside the box.
Yeah. I mean, synagogues have learned that you can maintain virtual communities.
Absolutely.
It may be uncomfortable for people and it took a lot of getting used to, but we are able to connect in a way with our congregants and our families in a way that they weren't going to walk in the door on a Friday night. They just weren't. There was too much going on. And it's going to be really interesting to see what it is that we're going to have to continue, what we're going to maintain. I don't think we can go back to the way things were. I don't think services will look the way they were. I think people are used to, they have a shorter attention span. Who knows how long we're going to be in this
situation. And there's accessibility that people can just, especially in LA, like rush home, sit down at dinner and have services streaming. And there are, many more people who are finding the tradition of Shabbat because it's in their living room.
Yeah.
And I do have mixed emotions. I mean, I've had that thought a couple weeks ago of like, oh my gosh, are we ever going to hug people again? And I think in the big picture, we will. I think this is, I was thinking about our lifespans. We were all born in the 80s and like, we've gone through 9/11 and this is probably the second hugest thing in our lives that we have experienced that has been really life altering. The other thing would be the 94 earthquake, which I know at least Lisa and I definitely experienced. But oh yeah, that's right. You were in, and yeah. But yeah. So, but what I think what's so scary about where we are right now is that we just don't know. Like in my head, we are sitting, doing chats like this, doing services online until there's a vaccine, which could be a year. Jay says, I think this is harder than 9/11. Well, there certainly have been a lot more people killed through this virus. I think that the unknown of this is the scariest. With 9/11, yeah, you could walk every time you get on a plane. You could think something bad is going to happen. But the statistical you could kind of like relax and be like, well, security protocols have gotten even crazier now. Now, there are some ways that you could say that maybe coronavirus is teaching us how to protect ourselves from bigger super bugs in the future. I mean, I guess, maybe in the span of our lives, we'll look back at 2020. It's like the Great Depression of 1920 and say that was a huge shift in how we live our lives.
Well, and the difference with 9/11 and even the earthquake is if you were there during that time, meaning if you were in the United States for 9/11 or in California for the earthquake, yes, it was a huge deal. It took over our lives for many, many weeks. And then for many who lived in New York for years and still does today. However, it wasn't worldwide. And this is worldwide. Like we are literally all in this together. So that's the difference.
Yeah. How have you seen like good come out of the Cantorate during this time?
I feel closer with my colleagues because we're kind of leaning on each other for what's working and what's not working and what we can do and what we can't do. And I'm reading more articles than I used to sit down and take the time to read to kind of inform myself, because the CCAR came out with a really beautiful, it didn't have any answers for us, but it had things to think about. And it listed a bunch of Jewish values and for each of those values, like pikuach nefesh and so on and so forth. And why we have to consider what's happening right now before we start to consider opening our doors again. Yeah. Not just because we want to make this bar mitzvah family happy, or we want to celebrate this wedding with 400 people. We want to have high holidays. It has to be, we have to think about how we are protecting our community and how we are doing right for each and every life. And so I think in a lot of ways, it's made us step back and really look at the small things and what really matters. And it's made us show our value, because I mean, I hate to, like, I don't mean this to toot my own horn, but like, I jumped in with both feet and said, all right, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm best camera to use so we can live stream and it can look better. I'm just constantly researching and doing and working so that we can keep our community connected. So that's been a positive, and I think that our communities have noticed it.
And I think there's on the kind of aesthetic side of the Cantorate, right? The Hidur mitzvah, like the beautification of the mitzvah, like that is part of our job, is to say, well, we could do it this way. And in my case, I stream from my synagogue. Jessica streams from her synagogue, but not with a full setup. Lisa streams from home. And all three of us have worked really, really hard to me, it's about taking away the barriers between us and our congregation virtually. And that's what it comes down to. When people are saying, well, why do you need a better camera? Or why do you need better lighting? Why do you need, nobody's saying this to me, but like, these are the questions that colleagues will even say. Well, why are you streaming from your sanctuary? Why are you, well, because ultimately we want to move people where they forget that they're watching us and that they're praying with us on a screen.
Right.
And so I think people have to understand that we do have that value in like seeped down into us. It's the same reason why you wouldn't show up wearing a bathing suit to high holidays, because there is an aesthetic that we have to think about. When people talk about, why do you care I'm shooting my thing like this, right? Like, right? Well, because we can't see you.
Pretty funny. Yeah. The first few weeks of watching our colleagues was pretty funny of where they thought they could film and how they could.
Oh, Saturday Night Live had like the best, like every Zoom call that we've all been on, or the church one the other night was great.
That was a good one. That New Year's song. Amen. That was so fun.
Esteemed rabbis, cantors, educators, like literally having Zoom calls with important people, like lying in their bed. Like, what are you doing?
So let me ask, are we coming out with a virtual reality shul? That is a very good question that we will talk about another week. In some ways, my synagogue is looking at. In reality, we're all virtual reality, if you think about it. Like, we're all virtual. And, I think no matter what, even though we're accessible from across the country, we still want people to explore and be like, you know what, I really connect with Cantor Hutchings. And that's why I'm going to choose to donate to that temple or to use Cantor Peacock for pastoral care. So there's still, when it comes down to it, that aspect of choosing your
I think
clergy.
what this time has done is for, people who have always been connected to our communities will stay connected to our communities. That's just part of their life. But for especially like I'm part of a very large congregation, and it's really easy to fall into the habit of, oh, I just go for the high holidays, or, oh, I'll call them if someone dies, or if I need them for a wedding or a bar bat mitzvah. Lizzie calls it the ballet Judaism. And this has kind of taken down that formal curtain that kind of always existed for all of us. And I've been able to connect with people who wouldn't have walked into the temple, who will now, because they feel like there's this this informal way that we've been able to be with one another. I've, hosted Havdalah from my backyard with my family, a way that they never would have had the opportunity to know me in that sense, of seeing me in my home space, of seeing me do services in my living room, that has now opened up this doorway to a relationship that might have not existed.
Correct. Same thing with Emmett. Like, I started that Lila Tove thing, and like I thought, hey, it's 7:00. I'm going to read him a story anyway, so let's just film it and put it on a live stream, because I don't have any qualms about that. And thinking,
are your babies awake? You should get them before we're done.
My baby is still with my mom, so.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Should I go get him?
Yeah.
But the rabbi got a really nice comment yesterday when he called to check on some seniors in their 80s, and they said, we love everything you're doing to keep the synagogue together, but our favorite thing is the Lila Tove story time, because we love seeing the baby. It makes
Look at him. Hi, Joey. Okay, are you kidding me? Oh my God! Look at his cheeks and look at his smile.
His friend Emmett.
Hi,
He's
Joey.
He's like, what is
I
this
know.
studio that she set up here?
Oh my God! Wait, you might have to turn off your virtual thing so we can see him.
Get the full effect.
Yeah, because right now we can't. It's like sometimes his head. Does anybody before we close have any questions for us? There he is.
Oh,
that's right, because you have a window behind you. Hi, Joey.
Can you say hi, Papa?
Hi.
The last time I saw Joey was on his bris, and then the pandemic hit.
He has recovered from that, for anyone who's wondering.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Hi, Joey. Joey's never going to remember this time, thank goodness. But let's see if I'm going to take like 2 more minutes to see if anyone has any questions. But I hope that maybe you got a little bit of an inside view of the Cantorate today. Some of it is controversial. Some of it is amazing. I think the best part for me is that I really have contemporaries who are along this road with me. And invaluable partners in this process. And whether we're at a 750 high Joey synagogue or bigger, we all experience the exact same struggles and the exact same joy. Right, Joey?
Yeah, and thank you to all the women who paved the way for us to be able to do what it is that we do.
Yeah.
That was a tough road to go through. I mean, we were talking about HUC and the Debbie Friedman School of Music, which wonderfully is named after her now, but she was not an accepted part of the male cohort when she first started to play services and be a cantorial soloist.
Definitely.
Absolutely. All right. Any closing words, Joey? Joey, you want to sing for us?
You want to sing? Can you sing for them? La la la. He's like, I'm just gonna eat my hand.
Okay, next time Emmett will have to join us.
I know. I thought about it, but I was like, I have so much going on today. I was like, Mom, can you take him? So.
Oh, I'm jealous. He's about to get through a staff meeting.
Hi, Joey.
I mean, like, it's great that your community, your staff is just very welcoming to that idea of having him around.
I'm very lucky. They're enjoying watching him grow up on screen.
I know, it's crazy. All right, everybody. Thank you both for joining us today. I know. Oh, there he is. He's going to sing for us. I know there's a lot of information covered. All of us are having Zoom fatigue. I'm about to go on another meeting in 2 minutes. But So happy to have talked to you guys. Bye. Bye, Lisa. Bye, Joey. Bye, Jessica.
Bye. Say bye-bye.